Hello, everyone, and welcome to the January 13th episode of the LGS Pod. I'm John Cross, and with me tonight, as always, is our co-host Dylan Wilson. Dylan, how are you doing this evening?
I am doing well. Gabby, my partner, and I finally got a new mattress, which is something we've been meaning to do for a long time. I don't know, you can actually see the blurred out old one right here propped up behind me because we haven't had a chance to get rid of it yet. The cats love climbing all over it because we
I
don't really
bet.
care if they scratch it up. So, but anyway, it's one of those things where I still don't think my old mattress was like a bad mattress, but oh man, it is an old mattress, and
When you get
some
a
of
new
these new
mattress,
mattresses, man, I've had some very good nights of sleep, and I'm more of a side sleeper too, and I made a point to get kind of a less firm mattress this time, just because it's better for my shoulders and back and stuff. And oh man, it's been a revelation. So to those of you teetering on the edge out there, I highly recommend that you pull that trigger. It's an investment worthwhile.
yes, always. Good night to sleep. Very important, especially when you get to a certain age like me, and also certain health situations. You need to make sure you have
Yeah,
that good night of sleep in order to function well.
I think I
Um,
speak for all men who have back issues that it's never too early to start taking care of your back. They
yes,
can only
that
benefit you.
that is true. Anything else happen before, I guess, since our last episode? Big news
Mattress
or
wise or
anything?
just in general? No, I'm joking.
Just in general.
Yeah, no, let's see. I had my first. So Gabby and I got season tickets to San Diego Mojo. I think I mentioned that, which is our
Right?
local women's
Yeah.
professional volleyball team now in their third season. I think they were previously part of something called like Pro Volleyball Federation or something like that, which merged with another league.
Right.
So now it's called Major League Volleyball. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was our first. It was the home opener. It was a great crowd. It was at Viejas Arena. So I don't know. That's what 8 to 10,000 seats it holds. I actually have no idea.
I
But I
think
would
so.
guess
I'm
there was
trying to
about
remember.
2 to 3,000, maybe a little more than 3,000 people there. So it was a great crowd. It looks like they had like lots of local volleyball clubs out, which is great. Got to engage the youth. I think that's a good way to go about it.
Right.
They're an exciting team. They have some very exciting talents. They have this one girl from Serbia, a woman, I should say, from Serbia, who's like 6'6", and it's actually kind of funny because you watch her jump, and like if you just look at her feet, she's not getting that high off the ground, but she's so tall that she makes it work. She puts some like, mean topspin on the ball. So it was a lot of fun, but they played kind of sloppy. It is early in the season, but there was a lot of like bad passing, some sets, bad communication. So hopefully they can work it out. But it was a lot of fun. I highly encourage anybody who's never been to a game. San Diego Mojo, like I said, they play at Viejas out at San Diego State. We take the bus, the 215 Rapid MTS bus goes straight
Yeah.
there.
Straight
Super
there.
convenient. I actually was talking with Gabby about this. When you consider like how far the parking lots are from the stadium and potential traffic on like El Cajon Boulevard and College Ave and stuff, the bus might actually literally be the fastest way to get there, at least for us, because our apartment is close to a stop. But yeah, great experience. Highly recommend for anybody who hasn't been. The concessions options weren't great, so I'm glad we made a point to get food beforehand. But other than that, I genuinely no complaints. It was a really good time. Other than the loss, of course.
Right. Yeah. I'll have to get out there with you one of these times to go see
Yeah, let me
a
know. I can
match.
get
That would be
discounted single game tickets as a member. So, or if ever I'm like not going to use a game, I can let you know and send them your way. So, they have mostly weekends. It's mostly Fridays or Sundays, but there are a couple like Wednesdays or Thursdays and a few Saturdays in there as well. So,
yeah. All right. Yeah. I didn't do too much this last week. I've been busy with the San Diego Soccer History Society, trying to get things up and going with that. We'll talk more about that a little later in the episode. But I did get out and get, we have passes, Zoological Society
oh,
passes. So we got
nice.
out to the safari park, which is the one super close to where we live.
My
And
parents actually gifted my brother a zoo membership for Christmas. I thought that was a really nice, thoughtful gift.
yeah, it's nice. They have a huge elephant exhibit that's about to open up.
Is there such a thing as a small elephant exhibit, John?
It's
No, I know. The safari
amazing. I
park
mean,
is
it's
is is impressive.
yeah, that's going to be opening up in March, and we've been watching it come together here for a while, a couple years, I guess, at least. So it'll be opening here early March, and yeah, super excited about that. But it's nice to just, because we're so close, we can get over there super fast and get there in the morning. And with passes, sometimes we just go and just walk. It's just nice to go and just do like a morning walk before it gets too crowded, and then you can leave and go grab some lunch somewhere.
Absolutely. That's,
Yeah.
my parent, like I said, my parents got my brother a membership, and one of they're retired, but they talk about one of their favorite things to do is just go for their walks there, go
Yeah.
park in the park and just have a nice walk. And my brother's a big photography guy, so I'm sure he's probably already made big use of that. So yeah, that's cool. Not to like get on my soapbox here, but I actually did an internship at the Oakland Zoo for a summer once, which was really, really special. And well, the Oakland Zoo used to be terrible, but it is great now.
I'm good. Okay.
Sorry. Well,
I'm gonna say,
go ahead.
I had a girlfriend in college, and I had only been to the San Diego Zoo my entire life.
So, okay. Yeah.
And she took me to the Oakland Zoo.
Yeah.
This would have been 85, probably fall of 85. And we walked in and kind of went down this hill, and then I was like, where's the rest? When you grow up in San Diego, and your only experience is the San Diego Zoo, you are incredibly spoiled, and you just don't know what other zoos are like. And I had no idea. I think that was the first zoo I'd ever been to outside the San Diego Zoo.
So not only were you
it was
spoiled,
very disappointing.
Yeah, not only were you spoiled with growing up with the San Diego Zoo, which has always been one of the best in America, you also, the Oakland Zoo at the time you'd have gone here, if I'm framing things right, probably was like the worst zoo in America then.
It was pretty bad.
And I'm not making this up, George Zimmer, the Men's Warehouse guy, you're going to like the way you look, I guarantee it,
right,
made a very sizable donation, and there was some really smart financial moving to make that money go as far as they could. And the Oakland Zoo is actually now the second best zoo in California, behind obviously the San Diego Zoo. It's not the biggest, but they've been expanding, and their animal care is really frontline. So I encourage you to go back if you're ever in the Bay Area. The Oakland Zoo has actually surpassed the San Francisco Zoo, and I don't think anybody would dispute that who really knows what they're talking about. But anyway, to bring back to my point real quick, I do want to say some people will, I get people say well, I think zoos are unethical. And I in a world where humans treated animals perfectly and didn't destroy their habitats, I could maybe see that argument, but we don't live in that world. And accredited zoos in the United States are very conservation focused, and the animals that are there because they can't live in the wild for whatever reason. And I encourage people, if your local zoo is accredited, which again is a big deal because there's only, I don't think there's even 50 accredited zoos in the United States, properly accredited zoos. But if your local is, support them, because the jabronis telling you that it's animal abuse don't know what they're talking about. So that's my soapbox. And also, again, the Oakland Zoo is great now. I know it was once terrible, but it is really awesome now. Highly recommend.
All right. When I get back up to the Bay Area, especially in the East Bay, I'll have to give that a shot. But I think, we've been going on for a while here and haven't talked soccer at all. We should probably start getting into our actual show.
So, yeah.
So tonight on our podcast, we're going to talk about our main topic will be the OFC Professional League, which is starting this weekend. So it's the new professional league for the Oceania Confederation. So we'll dive into that in the second half of the podcast and look a little bit, since, one of the things we always talk about in this country is the size of our country and the distances and the travel. Well, the travel for this league even exceeds, what we have in our country. So we'll look at how they're handling it, and maybe there's some things we could learn from the logistics or how they're putting that league together that we might be able to adopt even in some of our lower leagues. So again, we'll look at that in the second half of the episode. We'll cover some current events like we always do, but first we will start off, like we have been doing a lot lately, with a little bit of San Diego soccer history. So we have 3 things we're going to get to here for January 13th. The first two specifically relate to San Diego soccer stories, and we'll kind of pause after each one. We'll give you a chance to jump in, Dylan. Um, and then that third one isn't really San Diego specific, but it's gonna kind of dive into our first current event story. Just kind of serendipitous how some things worked out in terms of dates for this particular show. All right, so first up, on this day in San Diego soccer history, January 13th, 2025, so only going back 1 year, but this was the day that SDFC officially opened preseason for their inaugural season. So, I mean, I know sometimes we like to go way, way back in history, but at some point, right, we're going to look back on this 25 years, 50 years, whatever. You know, this was a significant date because the team actually getting together for their first real preseason. So, Dylan, any thoughts or comments to jump in for that one?
No, not particularly, but I think you're right. It's important to catalog things, even if you feel like, you know, it's being done or it's just like, oh, you know, it's happening, so you don't even really think about it. It's good to be on top of that at the moment.
I know the MLS is a tough sell for you, so let's try this one. See if this one goes over a little better. On this date, January 13th, 2021, U.S. Soccer announces that Torrey Pines High School alum Katarina Macario has officially made the one-time switch to play for the U.S. women's national team. She is, as most people probably know, Brazil native, but she moved to San Diego in 2011 at the age of 12 to pursue her dream of a professional soccer career, moving here with her dad and her brother while her mom stayed in Brazil. All right, Dylan, any comments here?
I actually didn't know she was from Brazil. I have only known her as a U.S. national, honestly. My following of the U.S. national teams, both men's and women's, has been pretty casual for the last few years for a variety of reasons. So that's actually news to me. Please don't take that to mean that I don't know what I'm talking about, although I don't sometimes, but whatever. I digress. I will say that I think that speaks really highly of U.S. women's soccer and its development, that a person in Brazil would look to come to the United States to develop. I think that says a lot about the development on the women's side of the game here.
Yeah, my understanding, and I believe I have this correct, is she played with boys the whole time until coming over. But if she was going to make it as a professional, she needed to start getting known and playing with women. And I don't know what her cap would have been in Brazil and playing with boys. And maybe she was reaching that at about the age of 12, you know, where they were going to be more selective and maybe not let her play. But yeah, she came to San Diego, went to Torrey Pines, or graduate of Torrey Pines High School, played for the Surf as the local soccer club, and then went on to Stanford and, you know, has played all over the world. We don't need to go into her entire career, but I like to always refer to her as Torrey Pines High School alum Katarina Macario. And I believe San Diego is really where she calls home now.
Well, and I was going to say that I think more now than maybe ever, it's important to reiterate and stress that the thing that makes Americans American, like singularly, is we are a nation of immigrants. Like nobody is American in an ethnic sense, right? Like we are people who have come here for thoughts of a better life for whatever reason, or our ancestors did, you know, for whatever reason, with the exception of, you know, actually Native American Indians, but like whatever, that's obviously a caveat here, getting off track. But I think it makes sense to identify her that way, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is that, like, you know, there are probably people who would disagree, but she is quintessentially American. She came here for a better life. I'm sure she identifies that way. Got her one-time switch, so obviously she does. But it just is, I don't know. It feels like kind of a modern all-American story in a way.
I also think, as you said in an early part of your comments there, that understanding the connections, and again, this is kind of the point of what we're trying to do with the San Diego Soccer History Society, is understand our connections, people who are from here, people who have connections to San Diego, and how that connects to the larger game at play, around the world. And I think that's one of the reasons we love this sport is that connection, the connection you get to your local community when you play, which we have through sports just in general, but also in soccer, there's a connection to the entire world that you don't get in most other American sports. And I'm going to use that kind of as a springboard to get into our next piece here. So humor me for a second. It's going to be a couple minutes as I kind of birdwalk here to get us to our current event. But we said Katerina Macario came here in 2011. Also in 2011, we had another, I guess, significant event, we'll call it here. Also happened on January 13th, today. And in the second round of the MLS Super Draft, the New York Red Bulls picked a player who we're just going to call John for right now. We're not going to use his last name because we're going to get to it in a few minutes, and that will give everything away here in a second. But those of you who are familiar probably already know where this is going. Others will hopefully you'll enjoy the ride here for a second. So John gets drafted by the New York Red Bulls. He plays for a season with them. He was a player of the Everton youth system. He had played professionally for a couple of years in England, but then came over to the US. Not really sure why from what I have researched. Wouldn't surprise me, though, if he came over to the US, maybe to get out of the shadow of his older brother, who is also a professional player and well-regarded professional player over in England. In 2012, he moves from New York Red Bulls and plays for Orlando City. If you know your soccer history, Orlando City is the USL team, not the MLS Orlando team. So Orlando City in the USL, he plays for them. And while he's playing for them, he also participates in the US Open Cup and is a multiple goal scorer in the US Open Cup. After Orlando City, he bounces around, goes back over to the UK, bounces around to several teams in England, spends a year over in Wales with Wrexham, but this is pre-Rob and Ryan time. And then eventually, in the 23-24 season, he signs with a very small club, nicknamed the Silkmen, and to play for them. Now, this club is actually a Phoenix club. It just started up again in the 21 season because the previous club had to fold, and it folded in 2020 at the end of there's a lot of things going on with the pandemic, but this Phoenix club he signed for was forced to start in the 9th tier of English soccer, but they're just coming off back-to-back promotions. So he joins them. Actually, let me back up with the club. So he signed for them. Now the original club, the one that folded, was established in 1874. Now that's prior to the Football Association and the Sheffield Rules merger. Like, that's how old this particular club was that then folded, and then the Phoenix club took its place. But that original club was also the club that first signed John to a professional contract before he came over to the US. So he's back with them for that season. They come in second place, which is not enough to win back-to-back-to-back promotions. But in 24-25, so the very last season, he helped them get promotion back up into the 6th tier, into the National League North. And then he retired at the end of the season. And he became head coach last July 1st. And this is someone with 0 managerial experience. Now, until this last weekend, probably for most of the life, everything he's done has been overshadowed by his big brother, who also was a former MLS player and coached in Major League Soccer as well. But I think this past weekend, he emerged a bit from his brother's shadow, because on January 10th, 2026, John Rooney forever etched his name in the record books and probably in the hearts of all Silkmen when he led Macclesfield FC to a 2-1 cup set over a team that was not just 117 places and 6 tiers above them in the English football pyramid, but also the defending FA Cup champions, Crystal Palace. Dylan, I'm going to let you jump in.
I admit, until you mentioned the Silkmen, I had no idea where you were going with that. I was like Googling things, like trying to figure it out. But yes, I did eventually clock where you were going. Yeah, I mean, it's the magic of the cup, right? It's one of the things that we love about this game. And one of my friends, actually, I might be able to find the video quickly here while I'm chatting, sent me a video of one of the players who I guess is like a primary school teacher, which is like elementary school in England, returning and getting like a standing ovation from his staff and his fellow staff members and students. And I mentioned to the friend, and I think there's some truth to this, is that like that experience of having their teacher beat the FA Cup holders, even if it's the third round, fourth round, whatever it is, that will inspire them to do great things, even if it's not football related, to do great things more than anything that ever happens in the Premier League or, Champions League or whatever could ever do, because that is tangible and close to home. It's someone they know achieving a great thing. And it's just, it kind of tickles me. I'm almost lost for words, even after having all this time to digest it, just because it's what you love about football. I think and especially these cups, right? The US Open Cup in the same vein. And I did just put in our private studio chat here, if you'd like to try and pull it up, the video that I'm referring to. It's short, but whatever. It's just, these are the kind of things that make these cups so special. I remember a few years back, Tottenham played away against a club called Marine AFC, who I guess were based outside of Liverpool, if I recall correctly. And I remember that on the far side of the stadium from the camera were numbers along the netting on the side of the stadium. I use those air quotes heavily. And I guess you just kind of assume they're like section numbers, even though there's no stands there. But the announcers actually clarified during the match that those numbers corresponded to the door numbers of the houses whose backyards the ball may have flown into. So you know whose door to go knock on when the ball goes out of play from, again, this place hosting, who actually, funnily enough, at the time, were Jose Mourinho's Tottenham Hotspur, top of the Premier League. So this was literally the top club in England coming to the 7 division sides. And obviously that's not what we're talking about here. But my point is, like, without these sorts of pyramids and these sorts of cups, you just don't get these like stories. And these stories are genuinely special. Like I said, I think this will inspire more than a handful of kids in Macclesfield to do incredible things, whether it's football or otherwise. I see you've got the video up here, so I'll let you go ahead and do that.
Oh, I'm trying to get it. Hold on.
Oh, okay, sorry. I thought you had.
I'll let you keep going. Yeah.
No worries. But yeah. So, and I actually have a couple fun facts up here that I did pull up. So, I think, as you mentioned, there were 117 places between them, which is the largest gap ever set for a cup set. This surpasses the record of 101 places from Chase Town and Port Vale in the 2007 and 08 seasons. So previously, this record had been set twice. Oh my goodness, almost 20 years ago at this point. But the record I think really stands out is they were the first non-league team to beat the cup holders in 117 years. And
Right.
so again, that is just a coincidence there. 117 places and 117 years since the last time a non-league club beat the holders. And
do you know who was the last non-league club to beat the title holders?
I do. It was Crystal Palace.
It was Crystal Palace.
So that is, man, I don't know. That's one of those. It's kind of like, John, I don't know if you're enough of a baseball fan to have heard people say, like, how can you not be romantic about baseball? But it's a thing people say about baseball, right? When things like this happen, how can you not be romantic about the FA Cup? Like, it's just silly. It's amazing. It's I don't know how else to
Yeah,
describe it. Serendipitous, I guess.
right. And this is I love this story so much. I mean, it's a cup set. People love cup sets, right? Just if you're a
There
neutral,
are cup
you
sets,
love
and
that
then
kind
there
of
are
set,
cup sets, though.
right? But there is so much embedded in this story. Like, I followed John Rooney, right? And that was it. And just because the date tied in nicely with things we were already talking about. But as you said, you could probably take almost any player on this team and look and find different connections. I mean, we have an American connection on Crystal Palace with Chris Richards, right? So I think that's one of the things why people love this sport. To me, it's one of the reasons I love this sport is in so many ways you feel connected with the rest of the world in a way you don't with the other sports because the way they're designed. And as opposed to the way soccer is designed, from FIFA all the way down. Now, we always complain and gripe about different issues that happen that we think are, not the best for the game. But this is one of those moments and things where it really, to me, encapsulates the things that I love so much about the beautiful game. And like you said, that the romantic part of the game. And you brought up the player who is the teacher. I had seen this online as well, but let me go ahead and pull that up here and get it on the screen. We will do it without volume and we'll just kind of narrate because really it's just clapping, but you can see the player. He walks in to what looks like a multi-purpose room with the kids all sitting on the floor and they're just clapping like the whole time.
And it's like raucous applause. It's not like it's clear there are adults like hooting and hollering and clapping as well. It's not just the children, there's a lot of respect flowing in that room.
Right. Yeah. It's and again, those stories, as you said, that's what connects you to your local community. But again, like John Rooney, I didn't know till this had happened. And, I think that was at a time I was starting to drift a little bit away from Major League Soccer. I might have vaguely remembered it sometime if you told me that Wayne Rooney had a brother that played in MLS. But I don't know if I remember that he played in USL and he played in the Open Cup and was a goal scorer. And it was just fun to kind of go down the road of, some American connection for both teams, right? As well. And again, we don't get that in any other sport, but you get it in this sport. And this is, even though it's not directly San Diego, but these are the things we want to do with San Diego soccer history of finding and sharing those connections and making sure people know about them, and trying to put it in a story. But the more I read about this, like you said, the Crystal Palace being the defending champions, and it's been 117 years since it happened, and they were the last ones to do it. Now, granted, there were only, I believe, at that time, 2 divisions in the Football League. So being outside the Football League was not the drastic thing that it was 20 years ago, or even again now, of having a non-league team beat a team in the Football League, especially from the top division, and especially the cup holders.
With that caveat in mind, do you know who the last non-league club to win the FA Cup was and when?
Wow.
If I could give you a hint, the fact that I'm asking might kind of give it away.
Well, I remember the first.
I don't know. They might be the only.
But Tottenham was the first
in 1901. They are.
Yeah,
they
were
the only. Yes.
When they refused to professionalize, and if I remember correctly, most of the London teams, and they kind of stayed out of the Football League initially. But yeah,
that is correct. Well done.
Yeah,
bonus points.
I believe they were the first team to.
So then that would make them the only. Then yes, and again, we can include that caveat, but still, you know.
Yeah. It's I just, again, the story to me, besides, and I didn't even see the game. I was busy doing something, which I'm so disappointed that I missed it to watch it,
For what
happen.
it's worth, CBS Golazo on one of their like they have a couple side channels like CBS
Yeah.
Sports Golazo dash Europe or whatever. One of those channels posted a very solid like 20 minutes highlight package of that game if you're interested.
I did see a very long highlight package
That's
of it,
probably what it
and
was.
it was fun to
Yeah,
watch
it
for
was
that.
it
But
was it was a fun game.
all of a sudden, my phone just starts blowing up
Mhm.
of people I follow and other things, and then and I had ignored some of the other ones, just like they were up early, and I was like, yeah, maybe I'll check in, towards the end of the game and see. But I just got busy with what I was doing, and then it was, you know, just all the craziness of a team 117 places below, 6 tiers below, doing the cup set. And again, I, I saw a couple comments online. People like, well, people saying I want that here, in the U.S., and other people making comments of, well, we'll never have that. They have more history than we do. And I, what I want to help get through people's heads is no, they don't. We have as much history. What we've been lacking the whole time is that connection from top to bottom of all our clubs. And frankly, to be fair, because we've covered this already last year in one of our podcasts, neither did the English pyramid. I mean, it wasn't connected all the way through with everybody as well. Really, that true connection that we see from top to bottom has only been 20-ish years that it's been around, a couple decades, maybe 3 decades at most. But there was always an idea that if you could get in on the bottom ends, then you could participate with the rest of the football pyramid. And we haven't had that, and those have been choices that have made from the early days of prioritizing owners, and what convenience for owners, investment for owners, rather than focusing on a team that is part of the community. Even though the teams always end up being part of the communities, our functional system of professional sports has always had the primary focus be the owner or ownership group, even 100 years ago. Anyway, I think we can kind of move beyond this, but I love this story. I love for all the things it connects and brings together. And hopefully soon, at least in a segment of our professional soccer pyramid, we will have some promotion relegation. So let's tip over to USL first for some of our news that we have, since we're talking promotion relegation, and that's the only professional leagues that are looking at doing it for right now. We had announced that there was a player signing over Blake Bodley, or Bodilly, as a lot of us still remember from our Royal days. But Blake Bodley was the first signing over there at Boise. And then you had mentioned on the last episode that you had heard through the grapevine that were a couple others coming. And I saw we did get 2 others. One was Nick Moon and one was Charlie Adams that signed with Boise. Just perchance, were those the 2 players you had heard about?
One of them, yes. Charlie Adams,
Ah,
I had heard about, but I have also heard rumors of another. And I did notice too, I believe it was Colin Martin posted an old picture of the SD Loyal Boys, to use his words, on his
I
Instagram.
think I
So
saw that. Yeah.
one can't help but wonder if maybe there won't be more than just one other former Loyal player. But yeah, I have heard through my source that told me about Bodley and Charlie Adams that there will be at least one more former Loyal player. Excuse me.
And I know there were a couple of people hoping when they heard that Xavi Nuati was leaving Monterey Bay that he might be one of those players, but he quickly signed with, I don't remember now, Tacoma? Is that
It
where he
was an
ended up?
MLS
Tacoma
Next Pro
Defiance?
team.
Yeah,
Yes, Tacoma Defiance. That's right. Which,
right.
I would obviously rather he stays in USL, but if he's going to go to an MLS Next Pro team, that's one where you can reasonably expect he will have good coaching and develop. So, good for him.
Yeah, so we'll see if Boise becomes loyal. I don't know, what do you call that? North? It's not. I
Loyal
don't
North,
really.
North, North.
North. All right. You had mentioned there were a couple of things you want to talk about. One of them was a recent decision by the football administration, or sorry, football association in England, about offsides law. So I'll let you lead with that.
Sure. So over the last few years, the FIFA governing body for the laws, whose name is escaping me right now, but whatever, it'll come back to me. They were considering a proposal by none other than former Arsenal manager Arsene Wenger, which I think became known as the Daylight Law. But basically, it was a proposal to change the offside law so that rather than having it be if any part of your body with which you can score, of course, is offside, then you are considered offside. The law would change it to be either if the linesman can see daylight between the torsos or like bodies, generally speaking, of the attacker and defender, they're considered offside. Or it would be rather than if any part of your body is offside, you're considered offside. If any part of your body is onside, you would be considered onside. So those are both kind of not changing the line of offside necessarily, but changing how it's decided, right? And so, as you mentioned, the FA and UEFA both rejected these decisions or proposals, rather. I don't know, yesterday, formally they did it, which was great because I think those are horrible suggestions for a variety of reasons. The first thing people point out is that changing the offside law to favor attackers that way would probably lead to more conservative defense, which I think in the immediate term is probably true. But I don't know. Long term, I think teams would adapt, and I don't know that that's necessarily like a super valid criticism. What I think is the more valid criticism of those ideas is one, the daylight idea is like that's so arbitrary and subjective and dependent on the angle that the linesman is standing at and like not really video reviewable because again, it's all dependent on where the person judging it is standing. And it's just that it opens a whole new can of worms that we don't really need. So I think the daylight thing is kind of immediately like obviously not a good idea. I have heard people argue in favor, and I think they've done so poorly, but I'll get to that. Argue in favor of the kind of reversal of the offside law, if you will, where rather than if any part of you is offside, you're offside, to change to if any part of you is onside, you're onside. So, like, it's kind of like hockey. I don't know if our viewers are hockey
Yeah.
fans, but if you are dragging like an iota of your body, whether that's the tip of your skate blade, on the line when the puck passes into the attacking zone, you are considered onside because there was a part of you that was not offside when the pass was made. I know that's like a super loose interpretation of the hockey laws, but it's helpful here, so whatever. I don't think that actually solves anything, and I know people will again immediately point to the more conservative defense, but I would argue that actually probably makes the split second offside decisions more difficult because rather than trying to see if somebody has edged past the defender, you're trying to see if an iota of like these feet running past each other were in line with each other. So it doesn't remove the ambiguity, and in fact, in my opinion, probably just increases the ambiguity of these calls while potentially in the near term making the game more negative. So I think first of all, it's on its face the idea that it would increase goal scoring is preposterous for a number of reasons. But second of all, I think if the idea is to try and remove these like very like micrometer like minuscule offside decisions, like I don't think it's gonna actually make that any better. I think it would make it worse. So this is all to say, and I realize I've kind of gone in the weeds here, but this is all to say I'm very glad to see that some prominent footballing bodies like the FA and UEFA have rejected this idea, because it has been trialed at lower levels in like U17 World Cups and stuff like that, which generally speaking, once those trials start, it's kind of, a stone rolling downhill. It's hard to stop the momentum of these rule changes, but I'm glad to see that this one was nipped in the bud, because again, I don't think it solves anything, and it very likely creates new problems. So well done, FA and UEFA. We don't get to say that a lot, so let's enjoy it.
We don't say that a lot. One of the things I was going to ask you, had it been trialed, because I hadn't been following this
You'd have to
but
check me on that, but I'm pretty sure at like youth level, like World Cups or World Cup qualifiers, or European Cups, things like that, Olympic maybe, it had been trialed. So again, generally speaking, once those trials start, it's hard to stop that snowball. So yay, I guess.
yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, with technology and everything else nowadays, whatever you choose, whether you're leaving something behind, and you're still on side, like the hockey example, or we keep it the same, it's still going to be, there are going to be a handful of decisions that are fractions of an inch. Someone's making an interpretation no different than someone making an interpretation before we had VAR. To me, VAR has just changed who's doing the interpreting, and has made it, just take longer. It's interrupted the game. That's what I hate about it more than anything.
I will say that I, as somebody who's like kind of a generally turning into a Luddite, like writ large, but especially when it comes to my sporting kind of outlook, I don't like a lot of technological changes unless it's a clear and obvious improvement, right? Like in baseball, when they added the video review, it was a clear and obvious improvement. Don't get me wrong, they could still make it better, but it clearly made the game better. And I think in soccer, there have been few and far between examples of that, but one really good one is goal line technology. Nobody questions it anymore because it's great. No. And I think the semi-automated offside technology, that's more of a tongue twister than I realized. Semi-automated offside technology is excellent. I really, really like it. The graphics it gives us, I find very definitive. I don't question them, generally speaking. There are a couple where it's so close, you're like, how do they even decide that? But it's nice to have the graphic, and again, the speed is better. Like you said, it doesn't delay the game as much. But I think most importantly, and I think this is something that gets lost in a lot of these conversations about things like offside, where it's not really, to a degree, it's a judgment call, but now in the day and age of these semi-automated technologies, or fully automated, I guess, it's not really a judgment call. It is like an objective measurement of something. And so I think where a lot of people kind of struggle and is on the more philosophical level, right? Where they want it to like be right all the time, or to feel right all the time.
Yeah.
To feel
you don't want the obvious error to not be caught.
But the thing is, where I think where that leads a lot of people is for them to forget that you have to draw the line somewhere. Like it's the coastline paradox. You can't just keep getting smaller and smaller to the point where you're measuring it at subatomic particles, because then the Heisenberg uncertainty principle comes into effect and we have no way to like effectively measure it, right? So you have to draw the line somewhere at some degree of certainty. And we have done that with the tech, with the offside tech, and I think it's pretty good. I'd like to see that kind of reinforced, improved, and maybe take the goal line tech and apply that to all the boundaries, right? Like the touch lines, something like that. Because these definitive measurements of the non-judgment things is where I'd like to see the tech applied. So the offside rule doesn't need changing. The tech around it needs improving, and I think it has improved a lot.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm sure we'll have a lot more to talk about VAR and all these decisions and lots of things coming up here, and especially as we get through the World Cup as well. But let's switch over to a different cup tournament. We have the Coupe de France going right now, and we just had a Paris derby. Haven't had one in, I forget how long now, um, since Paris FC just got promoted back into the first division. I believe they had a match this last weekend, which
They
PSG
did, yes.
won. Um, but then they had their cup tournament earlier this week. Was it today or yesterday? I can't even remember now.
Also,
Or was it over the weekend?
sorry, did you say Paris FC or PSG won the Paris derby?
PSG, I think in the league match.
Okay,
I
but in
thought
the
they had
cup
played.
match, Paris
In the cup
FC,
match,
yes,
Paris
Paris FC did
FC
win. Yes, yes.
upset PSG. Yeah. So I know this was one of the ones you wanted to talk about as well.
Sure, yeah. Well, so that match in and of itself is notable because I mean I don't think there are literally two closer stadiums used by separate teams in
Right.
probably the entire world. The Paris FC stadium and the Parc de France, the PSG stadium, are literally across the street from each other, and I mean that in like the literal sense of the word literally, not
And
in like oh my god literally, like, and it's
and
not
just
even a street right,
barely a street
it's not even a
separating.
street that cars can drive on. It's like a pedestrian walkway. It's like a county like bike path width between the stadiums basically.
I mean,
um
depending how and where you measure, I've seen ranges between 30 meters and 44 meters between the
Right,
two
because again, right, the
stadia.
stadiums like arch towards each other because of the stands. So yeah, it's like an obnoxiously close derby. Like, why can't they just share stadiums? Kind of derby, you know. So that game in and of itself is interesting, but the Coup de France I think is really interesting. Probably one of Europe's most interesting, like national cup tournaments, right up there with the FA Cup, and the FA Cup kind of more leaning on its history. Um, the Coup de France kind of leaning more on its interesting kind of like geopolitical setup with France, which I guess to explain a little bit of why this happens, France has a really interesting policy for a lot of its overseas territories. There's several different classifications for the overseas territories, but there are some overseas territories, for example, French Guiana in South America, that are, for all legal intents and purposes, the same as mainland France. They are considered to be the same legal entity as mainland France. And for that reason, legally speaking, France's longest single border with another country is actually with Brazil. So, you know, it's kind of an interesting, like, geopolitical thing they do there. But because of that, all of the teams based in these overseas territories that are like full on French sovereign territory, or however they classify it, I don't remember what it's called, but they are, for all intents and purposes, considered to be mainland France. The FFF, the French Football Federation, will help these teams who qualify far enough into the tournament to fly to mainland France to compete in the Coup de France. And I mean, obviously, they're like amateur or semi-professional teams. I don't think any of them have ever gotten further than like the eighth or ninth round. And bear in mind, this tournament is so huge that the eighth or ninth round of the Coup de France is like equivalent to the first or second round of the FA Cup. That said, I just think it was really cool that the French Football Federation, rather than kind of ignoring this sort of interesting geopolitical quirk of French political geography, they've embraced it. They've kind of said, hey, if your team makes it far enough, we'll pay your way to come here and play your game on the mainland. So the Coup de France is a really interesting tournament. None of these games are obviously televised in the United States. I've found maybe one or two of them ever on some pretty sketchy websites. So I'm not even saying like they're games you can really watch, but it's just kind of a conceptually really interesting thing that stood out to me when I learned about it, because I don't think there's another country, at least in Europe. I mean, maybe Spain with some, or Portugal with some of their far flung kind of Atlantic Ocean territories, maybe do something similar. But France has that really kind of interesting geopolitical designation for their overseas territories, and it's led to this really interesting cup setup that, I don't think you really see anywhere else.
Yeah, I think maybe that should be a focus of a future episode, the Coup de France, and even maybe Paris FC, kind of the
Yeah.
history behind that and the supporter group there, which is, not to be remotely confused with PSG. So we'll have to save that for another episode that we can find a
The
good time to
Parisian
circle back
football
to
landscape, all the way
either of
from
those.
professional to like amateur, clubs in the suburbs, is genuinely one of the hotbeds of football talent in the entire world.
Yes. Yeah. All right. I think that covers kind of our current events. So let's get over to our main topic here and talk about the Oceania Football Confederation's new professional league. So in 2026, the OFC Professional League is going to start. It's actually coming up this weekend from when we're recording on Saturday, which means for us, basically, the games will really be on Friday. But it'll be the start to, at least when I looked at their website, they're billing it as the first ever fully professional league in the Oceania Football Confederation. I'm not sure that's technically true because I don't remember the exact dates. I feel like the A League in Australia, which was fully professional, started in 2004, 2005, somewhere around there. And I don't think the Australian Football Confederation switched over to the Asian, they changed from Oceania to the Asian Confederation until a couple years after that. So
We'll let them have
and
it.
that might be splitting
Yeah,
hairs,
yeah,
but
I'll give it
this
to
is
them.
going to be a true
Well, and I think that in the way
OFC
that
Professional League.
right, and I think in the way that this league has made an emphasis on including like actual far-flung teams and cities
Right.
in the Oceania region, like geographically, not just we're calling it Oceania, but it's really New Zealand and Australia.
Right.
I think this is a real first for Oceania, as far as I'm aware.
I think it is, especially as you said, including all those other countries that are island nations or, a series of islands, but giving them an opportunity to have professional teams and compete on basically a first division kind of level. So you're the one who brought this to my attention. I think a few months ago. It was either end of November, beginning of December, somewhere around there, and we talked about we do the episode here right around the time the league started. But do you have any? I have some things here, but I'm going to let you jump in if you have any of the logistics for how this tournament is going to run. This is a logistical hurdle, right?
Yeah,
Which is the whole reason
100%.
why they haven't had any kind of professional league. Because one, they're small island nations. There's not a ton of people. So even if you have a team and you have enough good players to compete at a high level, you have to travel
It's
hundreds, if
prohibitive.
not thousands of miles to go to your next match. There are not going to be any Paris FC PSG derbies, most likely.
Literally
Right?
the opposite. Yes.
You're going to be as far flung as possible. I looked at some of the distances and tried to compare them to the US. And I think some of our longest distances between teams, like Vancouver to Miami, is I think roughly 3,500 miles. So that's in MLS, and I can't remember the two places now, but I think I tried to search for the longest between the two teams, and it was about 4,400 miles. Now, not that everything's that distance, but
It could
that's
happen,
at least
though. Yeah.
a distance.
Yeah.
So,
I
how do you do a league with all these far flung teams? And because you can't do it like the Premier League, like you can't just have your Saturday games and be
sure.
like the travel would be absolutely ridiculous. So, do you have any insight onto how they're running their league?
Sure, I do. And I want to say too that I actually did look into this, and the farthest domestic, and I'm using that term loosely because I think,
Right.
this is not literally domestic, but we'll go ahead and count this OFC league as domestic. The longest domestic away day I could find ever was from actually like a season in the late aughts. I want to say like 2007, 2008, where a club from Vladivostok, Russia, which is in the
Hmm.
part of Russia that's just north of its border with North Korea, so like on the far east Siberian side of Russia, made it to the Russian Premier League. So they obviously had to pretty much all of their away days were out to like the Moscow, St. Petersburg, Caucasus
Yeah.
area. So those are all like at least 5,000-mile away days. But anyway, not what we're talking about here. But I did just want to add that. So the distances are vast, but in addition to the distances in this OFC league being vast, the finances are tight, right? Like this is an organization being put, or a league rather, being put kind of subsidized, being put on by the OFC because they recognize the need to kind of build their internal infrastructure if their nations are going to remain in any sort of relevance on the national stage. So when you take the distances, the cost, and the financial restraints into mind, what they've come up with is this league format that will operate sort of like a tournament where it will run from January to May, and they will have 5 circuit series rounds. So what that means is they'll have 5 different stops, five different cities, where all the teams will gather there for like a week or two, to play a couple of games, and each of, or probably maybe even more than that, because there are 8 teams, and each of these stops will include a double round robin format. So that's each team playing like 14 matches. So it's unclear to me whether that means that they're playing. Maybe you'll have more insight on this. To me,
Yeah.
that sounds like they're playing like a home and away at each stop, not 14 matches at each stop. Correct?
Right. My best understanding from what I've seen, and I was just looking at round one here, but they're 14 is the entire circuit.
Right.
So
So they're playing
a
like
double round
some
robin.
stops. Yeah, a couple
So
places.
the first round is going to be in New Zealand, and I just saw they've just announced where the second round is going to be. So they're kind of making this happen as they go. Not as they go. It's not like it's flying by the seat of their pants, because the concept of this originated back in 2019. Um, but it was supposed to start in 2021, but of course we know the pandemic hit, and like everything else, that knocked things back a few years. So now they're finally starting this in 2026, 5 years later than their original start date. So it is not just brand new. They have been working things out and figuring out teams, and some teams who they thought were going to be in didn't make the final 8, and some other new teams happened. But for this first round, they'll be in New Zealand at a couple of different stadiums, and they're going to play a weekend match, a midweek match, and a weekend match. So all the teams will play 3 matches in this first round, and they'll all be stationed in New Zealand. And this is one of the ways they're trying to save money on travel costs, right? So you can be there, as you said, for at least a week, and depending on what's going on in the tournament, maybe a little longer, because I think some of their rounds are scheduled for 4 total matches to be
Well, I
played.
was going to say, if
So
you're assuming there's 5 stops, each one between 2 and 4 matches, like it's going to,
yeah,
work
and
out
and
something like
then
that. So,
I don't know if one of those stops counts as the playoff as well. Like when you do your tournament.
sure, sure.
I don't know if that's one of the 5, but like I said, starting this weekend, and 8 total teams. I thought it was interesting, and one of the things I saw here is that 4 of the teams, if I saw this right, are existing teams. A
Correct.
couple of teams
Yes.
from New Zealand,
Correct.
and
Yes.
4 were brand new created teams. Um, and I think one of those brand new created teams was the Vanuatu team. And I
That
just
is
saw
correct.
something,
Yes.
knowing that we were getting ready for this podcast. I came across something today or yesterday about the technical director, I think, and the head coach, who were both Germans, who were hired on, have left the team right before this opening weekend for citing philosophical differences. So already some
Some trouble in
interesting
Vanellope's
developments,
division.
yeah, that are for this their first round. But even still, even with all that, I am super excited for this tournament just because again, it's another opportunity for people to be connected to this global game. And because they're doing this professional league, it's really more like the Champions League in a sense because they're spreading it out across the Confederation. But they will get direct entry now. Like this is going to be the avenue for direct entry into the FIFA Club World Cup and the Intercontinental Cup for the Oceania region. I don't know if there's any plans down the road for expansion or even a pyramid kind of structure to do promotion relegation. I'm sure that depends on how many viable teams they can have. But I'm glad they're trying something and putting something together. And it'll be interesting to see if we can find some games and see what the quality of play is like.
Yeah, I agree, and I think with this first season, as far as future kind of pyramids, whatever go, I kind of the same point we made with the USL Cup in these early years. It's just about getting it done. Just make sure it happens, and then you can kind of change, expand from there. But yeah, I'm really excited for it too. I think I heard on my Sweeper podcast, which is actually what turned me on to this, that it will be available on FIFA Plus, which is FIFA's own like streaming service. I'm not a member. I've never used it. I can't speak to it, but they do plug it a lot on this Sweeper podcast I listen to. And they do have a lot of games from random countries that you'd never guess to watch games from. So, yeah, maybe it'll be worth a check out. Maybe if there's a free trial or something, like one of us can
I
tune
don't think
into
the
one of
FIFA
these.
Plus costs anything. I had signed up for
Oh,
it once.
really?
I think
I
it's
assumed
free.
it was I just assumed it was a paid service.
I actually think it's part of their FIFA channel that they also do that you can find almost everywhere, like on the free version of Sling or Roku
Huh.
or Google
I
TV.
did not know that.
I don't know if that's the exact same thing, because that's a linear channel, so you're going to get whatever they put on it. But FIFA Plus is like other digital things where you can watch matches. I can't remember what I watched before. I think it was a youth competition that they had on there. But that was a few years back. And it, at that time, didn't cost anything. And it was right when they had launched their FIFA Plus app. So I believe it's free, but I'll have to look into that and see as well. But it'll be fun to check out the quality of play, as we said, and the teams. But I'm also interested in how this tournament works logistically. Like, does this circuit that they're doing over 5 different dates work? Is it effective? Because I think back to, we covered Australian football pyramid in a previous episode, and I think about what they're trying to do with their Australian championship, their new second division, which they basically ran as a tournament. So there was qualification from the third division, and they selected some teams who met certain criteria to be part of the second division. And they didn't really run a league, but they ran a tournament instead. And this is a league, but the league is chunked into these different dates where you'll play 3 games, or then over here you'll play a couple of games. And you're not necessarily having home matches because you got 8 teams, you only have 5 locations. So some teams will always be playing away. It's really a hybrid of a tournament, or kind of a tournament feel that all the teams are in one place. So for fans in those places, great, you get to see a whole bunch of matches. But you don't really get the strong connection to your community in a home ground kind of thing. So again, I'll be interested and see if there's anything we can learn in the US, especially for our lower leagues. And I think of something like the League for Clubs, who's trying to do a pre-professional league that they want to establish, something that sits between adult amateur soccer on the men's side and, say, USL League One, the third division. but filling that gap. So for teams who want to make that leap to be fully professional, there's a bridge. There's another step that you can do rather than going from $100 to $200,000 annual budget to a $5 million annual budget. Because you've jumped that bridge. But I wonder if doing a circuit kind of thing or something else, before you have a huge footprint of teams, when you have fewer teams, if that might work. And I don't know if it will, but I'm curious to see how this works out and if that's something in the US here we can learn from and adopt maybe in a particular situation as the different levels of our pyramid are growing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, sometimes it's just about getting that first step, and then you can kind of grow from there. I would love to see Oceania kind of grow on the world stage. I think it's kind of a totally untapped region as far as talent goes. And I'm super interested to see how this pans out. Like you said, it's kind of a unique format,
Yeah.
in and amongst all these other interesting factors. So, yeah, I definitely will make an effort to check this out, despite probably some ridiculous kickoff times when we're looking at it in Pacific time. But I did actually manage to find a list of the circuits. So Circuit 1,
Okay.
which will take place in January, so this month, is in Auckland and in a suburb outside of Auckland are the two sites. Circuit 2, which will be late January through early February, are taking place in Port Moresby, which is the capital of Papua New Guinea, which is the eastern half of the New Guinea island, the western half, of course, belonging to Indonesia. So that's super interesting. I don't know. Papua New Guinea, I think, is like a super interesting place. Just from a human perspective, it's one of the most linguistically diverse and dense places on Earth. So, I'm kind of curious to see what the representation of Papua New Guinea looks like in this league. Circuit 3 will be in Australia. They haven't determined where yet, but you have to assume that will be in Melbourne, considering South Melbourne are the only Australian club in the league. Circuit 4 will be in Fiji. No, excuse me, the Solomon Islands, and then Circuit 5 will be in Fiji. So that's that's a good spread, and Circuit 5 will end in mid-April, so you figure the playoffs will be late April and early May.
Yeah, and I know once they finish the first five, maybe once they finish their double round robin, I'm going to assume that's their first five circuits.
That's
maybe
correct.
it's
Yes,
not.
the first 5 circuits.
Okay. But I also said that what they're going to do is something that's very common that we see in Europe with leagues that only have, say, 12 teams in them, is then once they finish their initial round robin, then they split the teams.
Right. Yes.
So in this case, they're going to split the teams. The top 4 will go do their own little tournament, and the bottom 4 will do their own little tournament. And for the top 4, the top 3 will earn berths into the semifinals. And then the 4th place finisher on that top 4 is going to play the winner of the bottom group of 4 for that last semifinal spot. So then they can wrap up their tournament. So
I think that's kind of interesting.
I know Denmark does something like this. Like, I forget who else. There's some other leagues that do something similar. And I do like it if you have fewer teams, it rather than play everybody just a bunch of times or 3 times and make it off balance, to try to get, if you have 12 teams in your league. I like that you do your round robin and then you split. It still makes games, there's jeopardy, because once you split in a more traditional system, now you're fighting off relegation, but only against all the other teams that are fighting off relegation. You're not playing one of the top teams. Everybody's struggling to make sure they're not being relegated, and the other teams, are fighting for a place in Europe. Because the first third of the season or something gives you, sets the tone for where you're going to end up for the last third of the season. So it's I like these when you have fewer teams to kind of see it, and they have a short window. I'm sure they're trying to wrap all this up before the World Cup as well for any I don't know if there's any possible players here in this group that might be there, but also in terms of interest in watching, and they're going to want to have it wrapped up beforehand.
Yes. Sorry, I got totally distracted there. I totally lost my train of thought. Sorry, dead air. My bad.
Nope, that's fine. But anyway, it'll be interesting again for the whole tournament to see how it plays out. I'm excited to see what happens, if it's successful, which I hope it is, just for everyone in the region's benefit, and that it can grow from here, especially, people love to hold England up as a model for promotion relegation, and it is a country that's not even as big as the state of California, right? And the density is just incredible. So you can have bus rides everywhere. Like there's almost no reason ever to fly anywhere. But you can't do that in our country, and you certainly can't do that in, the South Pacific. So you have to, find different solutions. But again, it's a way for them to do this and still be connected on a club side with all the other club competitions that everyone else around the world plays in. And again, it's that connection. It's one of the things that makes the sport unique.
And it gives a platform for the talent in that region to shine, because I think previously really only players from New Zealand have properly been given that platform. So
yeah, and they've been able to really shine in New
100%.
Zealand because Australia moved out.
Right.
So
right.
that really allowed New Zealand to dominate, but it didn't really give a ton of opportunity for the other countries that make up the rest of the Confederation.
Yeah. So hopefully, long term, I think a lot of these countries would view the goal of this as developing their own kind of internal domestic football.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll keep a close eye on this one.
Yeah, definitely keep a close eye on this one. All right. Well, I think that wraps up the main part of what we wanted to talk about. I have just a quick update on the San Diego Soccer History Society. We probably mentioned it last week. I can't remember everything we talked about, but we were trying to get a Discord server set up first so we can just start getting people in the same room, so to speak, to start talking. So we can start making plans for 501c3 creation, as well as just giving a forum for people to be able to talk about San Diego soccer history. So that server is up and running. Anybody out there who would like to join the conversation, it's free. There's no memberships right now or anything. So come on in and join us. You can contact us here at the show, or anybody who's out there that knows us that can contact us individually, reach out. If you're interested in helping support what we're trying to do with the San Diego Soccer History Society, or build the 501c3, or just talk San Diego soccer history, and any one of those, you're welcome to join the Discord server for right now as we kind of get our initial plans together and set up. So Dylan, any comments about that before we talk about what we're going to watch this next week?
No, I noticed a few people have joined already, and I'm glad to see that. I think this
we have
is
a few
cool projects. So
there's a few more. I have some specific people I'm looking to target, which I'm not going to say just yet, but trying to get some. I almost was going to give a hint, but I'm like, I'm going to hold off. But we'll see if we get some other key people in there. But that's our quick little update for that, and we'll be giving out some other updates on future podcasts as things start rolling with the San Diego Soccer History Society. But with that, Dylan, as we start to wrap up things like we always do, what are you looking to watch or be engaged with soccer here over this next week?
Yeah, I haven't truthfully looked ahead too much. I know the Premier League's back in action this weekend after the FA Cup break. But other than that, I don't know that I have too many soccer plans. I always check FOTMob just to see what's going on.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there will be some more cup games I'll probably check out this week. But yeah, I don't have too many set soccer plans as it stands.
Well, we are wrapping up AFCON here, so
That's
semifinals
right.
are
Okay,
tomorrow.
yes.
Um,
I've had a
so
hard time
it's
watching that, to be honest. It's mostly on BN, isn't it?
Yeah, I've had a hard time as well trying to watch it. I have enjoyed watching the highlights. It seems
Yes.
to, from people who have been able to watch it, sounds like it's been quite the entertaining tournament. Some great, I've seen some great goal highlights, some great plays. It just looks like it's been a lot of fun. So we have the semifinals coming up, which I'm guessing then that means, again, I haven't been like you. I've just, most of my stuff's been day to day, but I did do a little look ahead just to see. I think the finals then are happening this weekend. Um, if not, well, maybe they're, I don't know. I don't know if they're midweek next week or this weekend. Apologize for that. But the semifinals are on Wednesday, which is tomorrow for us. But one of the things along those lines I was excited to see is that the WAFCON, the women's tournament, they're having their draw on Thursday. And I thought this was prime marketing strategy. Like, this is great. The day after the semifinals, you have your draw. So you don't have your draw in the middle of the tournament, but you get it set up, and they're rolling in to their tournament pretty much when this, not exactly when this one wraps up, but Morocco is also hosting. So they're going to be rolling into the women's tournament after this. So the draw comes up on Thursday. So we'll know all the groups. And I think for the women's tournament, the quarterfinal winners all qualify for the World Cup. I think that's how they
Oh,
do it,
nice.
similar to the way we do. So that's
Sure.
another, thing that's on the line in the the AFCON tournament over there for the women. So
Nice.
that's coming up here very soon. And of course, in big worldwide soccer, we've got round 7 of Champions League and all the Europe competitions coming up next week. So we're getting down to the last couple rounds. I don't think anybody, at least on the Champions League side, has been eliminated yet mathematically. Even
I'm
was
sure
it
that'll
kind of
start coming. There are
Almaty?
some teams struggling though.
But
So,
yeah, like they'd have to win both games
yeah.
and have a
Yeah.
tremendous
Yeah.
win by wide margins. They're effectively, a couple of teams probably effectively eliminated, even if not mathematically just yet. But after next week's round, we should really know what the key matches are. And you you guys, Tottenham, right? You got a big match against Dortmund. I think you guys are
Yes.
tied in the table,
Yes.
aren't you?
Yes. Yeah. We'll see how that
Yeah,
goes.
that could be solidifying the top part of the group there, or being not you wouldn't be out of the playoff group, but
No, but it'll set the tone, I think, for the outlook on the rest of that Champions League campaign for sure.
yeah. So I'll look forward to that. Probably find some chances, and then really my big thing is I know it's still 2 months away, but uh, I'm kind of waiting for the Open Cup. Oh, and I
Yes.
remember what I don't remember if I mentioned it last week, but we're right in the middle of high school soccer season, boys and
Oh,
girls soccer, and there's some really good matchups that are out there, especially the way high school sports and soccer is done now. We haven't really talked too much about high school soccer, but because of what we've been doing the last couple of decades, our kind of pseudo promotion relegation that we do in high school sports for all the sports, not just soccer, but you get a lot of the top teams that are playing together in the you know in leagues. So they try to set up all the Division 1 teams as much as possible playing together in their leagues. So we've got some quality matchups here, especially in the Division 1 and Division 2 sides, both on the boys and the girls side. So we'll try next week, as we're getting into league play and getting into the last, I don't know, 3 to 4 weeks of the season. We'll try to try to highlight some key matches around the county to go check out if you have some time, because there's some great matches out there as we start getting closer to the high school soccer playoffs. So we will certainly set that up as something for us to look forward to, and maybe we'll try to get some people out to a particular match, because I know we got quite a few teams up in my neck of the wood that are ranked in the top area, top 10 or so, at least on the boys' side, and might try to get out and see some of those matches. So we'll try to have some of those, give you some suggestions next week, some matches to go check out that are upcoming.
Yeah, that's fun. I probably haven't been to a high school soccer match since I was in high school. But I remember they were always it was really a lot more about the running than the football so much. But maybe that was more of a NorCal thing. I don't know. So that's exciting. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of future professionals kind of dithering about in the San Diego high school scene.
We have, we just highlighted one this evening, right? And Katerina Macario. So we've had, Milan Olaski here at San Pasquale up in my neck of the woods. And we've had quite a few very good players come through San Diego County. So there's a lot of good players, a lot of good soccer out there, and maybe some future national team stars that you might get a chance to say you saw them while they were in high school. So again, we'll have some of those matchups coming up on our next episode. All right, Dylan, is there anything you want to add or give a shout out to or a comment before we head out?
Well, yeah, just real quick. Sorry for disappearing for a sec there. The cat knocked something over, and everything was okay, but it sounded disastrous when it first happened. So that's everything's okay. Yeah, another Mojo game this weekend. Looking forward to that. But yeah, I just stay safe out there, folks. World is pretty crazy right now, it seems. So
very, very crazy. That is right. All right, everyone, that wraps up another episode for us here at the LGS Pod. We'd like to hear your thoughts and comments, or if you're interested in helping us out with the San Diego Soccer History Society, leave us a note here on the YouTube channel. You can do that. You can reach us on BlueSky at soccershorts.bigfinddigital.com, or send us a text if you're listening to us on a podcasting app. Look above the description. There should be a link, and you can send us a text that way. Or, as always, you can join us live here at 6 o'clock Pacific time on Tuesdays when we record our show. And that wraps it up for us. So thanks, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Good night.